Welcome. Thanks for the opportunity to present key findings and implications we see for broadband service providers from our recent analysis of broadband data usage. My name is Larry Siegel, and today, along with our founder and CEO, Mark Trudeau, in addition to looking at the trends we see based on the usage of broadband networks as a result of our deployed network optimization solutions, we're going to take a deeper dive and look at some of the obstacles that are causing network issues. As you may know, OpenVault provides a modular solution suite called Vantage, which features automated actions to improve network performance. It's important to note that these automated actions include proactive network maintenance, profile management applications or PMA, and dynamic congestion management. Our unique view into our clients' networks enables us to see trends and how those usage trends impacts network health. Conversely, we'll also be sharing our observation on how network health affects usage.
Seems like Larry's having some technical difficulties, so rather than hold everybody up, let me share the deck and we'll walk through this a bit. We always start with some standard usage trends. So here, what we're seeing is average usage per household has approached now 700 gigabytes, which is an 8.9% growth rate over last year at this time. Median household usage has also grown about that same rate. And then we look at kind of over the past few years, usage growth has leveled out to an average of around 10%. And that's down significantly from what we saw during COVID, which was the highest growth rate, which we've talked about in the past, and that was about 40%. But usage never went back down, so we're seeing continued growth in usage, albeit at a slower rate. Now, let's just shift gears to focus a little bit on the difference between upstream and downstream, right? So we always like to basically break that out so we can see what the difference is. Here we see on the dark blue line, downstream is actually showing lower growth, down to 8.6% actually. The blended rate, as I mentioned, was 8.9. But upstream continues to go up and to the right. So we're looking at 14.6% growth on the upstream. And this is particularly challenging, as we know, for the HFC providers, where upstream capacity is so limited. So important to keep an eye on the upstream. Now, there's a few slides here that those of you that have been on these webinars before might seem repetitive, but I think they are worth repeating. Number one, we do have a lot of new attendees today, but also we're going to take some of the analysis a little bit deeper, and you'll see what that means in a couple of slides. But what we're looking at here is the fact that usage and speed are a lot less correlated than they used to be. And we would always see an increase in speed would result in an increase in usage. Here's an example on the left of downstream speed. So we have actually one of our lower provision speed operators. The circles represent operators. That one that's highlighted there in the upper left actually has pretty low average provision speed versus others. But you notice that their usage is actually the highest average usage for their subscribers. On the other hand, we have an operator that's got some of the fastest speeds that are provisioned on average for their subscribers, but their usage is actually on the low end compared to other operators. So why is that? So I think, as we look at a couple of specific scenarios, this is really diving into two specific operators. Operator A, 544 megabits per second on the downstream for their average speed. Operator B, faster speeds of 557 megabits per second on average. But when we look at the usage profile of those two operators, we notice that the one with the slower speeds actually has far higher usage per subscriber. And now, why is that, right? So it takes kind of some further looking into the network health and what's going on as far as the health of the network. So here we see that operator A actually has very little congestion on their network. So even though they have slower provision speeds than operator B, they don't have the congestion to deal with. Operator B has pretty heavy congestion on their network, and that's resulting in lower usage. Now, lots of things can cause congestion, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, from power users to oversubscription on a given node to impairments in the network. You have impairments in a network that can knock 3.1 modems off the OFDM channels in an HFC plant. You're going to have congestion on the SC-QuAM side of the house, and that's going to show up. So you kind of need to take a very holistic look at what's going on in the network to understand this stuff. Now, the real crux of this, and this is where we took the analysis just a little bit further, was we said, well, let's look at the impacts of this congestion and the lack of network health, right? And I think what we see here is that operator B, the operator that's got more congestion, experienced 54% higher churn over the past year than operator A. That is substantial. Subscribers are the lifeblood of the operator. So to have that much churn, much of a higher churn rate, tells us just how important network health is for an operator. And that's kind of how we took the analysis a little bit further to really understand the impacts and why it's so important these days to have a healthy and reliable network. Now, we always like to make some interesting observations. Here we decided that we'd take a look. We've done different events in the past. We've looked at the Super Bowl. We've looked at the election. We've looked at different things, and we decided to take a look at Christmas Day and how this past Christmas compared in terms of usage throughout the day to previous Christmases, 2022, and then back to the COVID year of 2020. And what's interesting here is we see 20% higher growth, higher usage overall than we did 2 years ago, almost 60% higher than 4 years ago. But I think what's also interesting here is if you look at the chart, the orange line, the peak hour really starts closer to noon on Christmas Day. It started closer to noon this past Christmas. And you think about this being a day of new toys, right? For kids, gaming consoles, etc., adults with 4K, 8K TVs, whatever it may be. It's no surprise that we see a lot more usage on Christmas Day. But I think it's interesting to just kind of look at the trends here and the fact that we're seeing huge growth. This is one of the highest usage days that we see. And the interesting part is peak is not really just a single short window of time anymore. It's a good chunk of the day. So that's just an observation that we wanted to share. Let's shift gears here again, because we always talk a lot about power users and just the impact that they can have, right? So we're looking at two categories that we often report on. One is the percentage of subscribers over a terabyte. The other is the percentage over 2 terabytes. So what we see here is nearly a quarter of all subscribers are using over a terabyte at this point. And it's not hard to imagine, based on the trend that we saw with average usage, that pretty soon, in a few short years, we're going to see the average household usage being over a terabyte. So we got to really keep an eye on that. The 2 terabyte users are now represent 6% of all users. So again, everything's up and to the right in terms of power users as well. And we're going to show in a second here just the impact that the real power users can have. So here we're going to look at kind of the top 5 users that we've observed. What we decided to do is look at both downstream and upstream, looking at the top 5 users and just how much more usage do they account for than the average subscriber. So our top user here that we observed in the fourth quarter of 2024 consumed 35 terabytes on the downstream. And that's 53 times what the average user uses. And for all of you that are operators on this call, you understand the impact that those customers can have. It's substantial in a negative way to all the other subscribers that share that part of the network. So really important to be able to pinpoint who they are and potentially take action, which we'll talk about. On the upstream side, this is even more concerning when you have a single subscriber accounting for 123 times what the average subscriber accounts for on the upstream. Again, back to in an HFC world, with upstream capacity being such a challenge, this one subscriber is causing a nightmare for everybody else on that part of the network. So really, really, really important to take a granular view of usage right down to the subscriber level, instead of just going and rolling trucks and sending technicians out into the field. When subscribers on these parts of the network that share this bandwidth are calling into customer care, there's nothing that technician can do in the field without understanding that this one subscriber is causing issues. So this is something we're going to continue to keep an eye on, and I'm sure every operator on this call knows who those customers are, because a lot of the operators are our customers, and we always talk about this with them. The ability to identify these customers is critical. Larry, since you're back, I think I'm going to stop sharing so you can take back over, because you control the poll. So I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much. Glad to be back. Zoom Workplace decided to reinstall itself at exactly the worst possible time. So, hey, good news is my Zoom is now completely up to date. So yeah, we'd like to run a poll. What is your greatest concern regarding the higher usage numbers among subscribers? We just looked at a lot of that data. So of these, is it discovering where and when network impairments are occurring? Is it identifying the kinds of impairments that are occurring? Is it deploying technicians as efficiently as possible to address those impairments? Or is it finding ways to extend the life of your current DOCSIS network to meet the growing demand? Or basically, are they all number one concerns? All right, so as you can see, besides all of them being number one, the second single most important one is discovering where and when network impairments are occurring. Luckily, we're going to talk about that. So let's get back in and talk about these causes. Every day, we discover and address issues in our customers' networks that keep them from delivering the best possible quality of experience, or QoE, and maintaining their NPS rating. Of the causes we see most, these are the top ones: network impairments, of which there's a wide assortment, reduced capacity and network congestion, and speed clipping. So now we're going to take a look at each one, how to solve for them, and what kinds of tools can you use, such as the kind that OpenVault provides, to address them. And we'll go back to Mark.
Thanks, Larry. So I'm not going to go through all these specific types of impairments, but those of you on the call that run these networks understand what they are and what a challenge it is to identify them and deal with them. So let's continue moving on, and we'll dive into some of the things Larry just touched on. Proactive network maintenance really comes down to the ability to identify impairments that are causing issues in the network and causing problems for subscribers and quality of service issues, and really putting those tools in the hands of technicians to be able to prioritize their day, to be able to pinpoint issues so that they're not wasting time running around the network trying to figure out where the issue is. Is it in the home? Is it in the outside plant? And having things like a mobile app to be able to use, which we know a lot of the technicians, particularly the newer technicians, the younger ones, really love the mobile app. So that's all part of proactive network maintenance. It's a really key component, especially in an HFC plant where we know the impact that noise can have on the network, et cetera. This has become a really valuable tool for operators, and you see some of the ROI type of metrics there on the bottom. So this is one that we believe we have a best of breed type solution that's available today. We had one particular customer that decided to do their own analysis, a tier one customer, on just how much they were saving annually through the use of this. And the main savings were looking at customer care calls and truck roll reduction, This didn't even include things like I talked about earlier around churn reduction and kind of retaining customers because they're simply happier customers. And this particular operator works on about 30 nodes a month, and they figured out that they were saving about $500,000 per year for each of those 30 nodes and when they looked at these particular metrics, and that on an annualized basis saving about $6 million. Now this is a tier 1 operator, but you can do the math based on the number of nodes that you'd focus on in your own operation, but the return is just substantial. And again, no analysis here in this particular analysis about net promoter score, return reduction. So the benefits go just far beyond, I think, what you see here.
Thank you, Mark. Moving on from network impairments, now let's talk about capacity constraints and network congestion. What can be done about it? And how about a real-world example from our own solution after it was deployed at a broadband provider? Here's Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. So, capacity issues, like I was saying a little while ago, can be caused by lots of things. Power users certainly can cause capacity constraints, congestion issues, etc. Impairments can cause this. As I mentioned, a 3.1 network, impairments can oftentimes knock 3.1 modems off the 3.1 part of the network, and that's going to cause congestion for everybody else. And it's a real challenge for operators to keep those subscribers bonded to the 3.1, to the OFDM and OFDMA channels, to do a couple things, right? You want to provide the best possible service to those subscribers and free up capacity for others. Oversubscription is also something that needs to be considered. So lots of causes of capacity constraints, and it's really important to have that kind of full view from a vantage point, if you will, of the network to see what the real root cause of congestion issues and capacity constraints are. So our profile management application is one that works very well with PNM because it works around impairments and provides the best possible solution until those impairments can be fixed. And there's really two main components. And basically, it's optimizing the modulation profiles, and our application kind of works behind the scenes to identify modems that can handle more a higher modulation profile, more improved modulation profile, and automatically applies those. So you're going to get the maximum capacity possible in that part of the network. As importantly is the resiliency. And as I mentioned, keeping those 3.1 modems bonded to the 3.1 channels is absolutely critical. So there's really the increased capacity as well as the increased and improved reliability and resiliency. I think we have I'll try not to get too technical here, but this is an example on the upstream side of what happens before PMA is deployed and after PMA is deployed. So in this case, we saw that before it was deployed, we had 28% of subscribers on really the worst performing IUC on the upstream, IUC 13. Once PMA ran through the algorithms, we applied through our solution the optimal modulation profile. You see the difference. It pushed a lot of subscribers into better performing IUCs. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with PMA, is provide the best possible service to as many subscribers as possible in light of an impairment. Even when an impairment exists, a lot of times the infrastructure vendors will take a very, call it least common denominator approach just to keep subscribers online, when in fact those modems can handle more bandwidth. And that's really what we're trying to do and what we do with our PMA solution. So we've had tremendous results thus far, and we're really excited about that particular solution for 3.1. Those operators that have moved to 3.1, 3.1 extended with future plans even to go to 4.0. So another thing which we've talked a bit about here is congestion management, and the ability to identify nodes that there might be a node split plan, there might be different initiatives that need to be planned, but really taking that granular approach to understanding what's the root cause of congestion. And if it's one of those power users that you heard me talking about, that subscriber that's using 53 times what an average subscriber is, we have the ability to take action on that. They're actually hurting the service of everybody else. In effect, they're throttling everybody's bandwidth when they're using that much in a single node. So it's important in the world of a fair use shared network that you want to provide the best possible service to the most possible customers. And in some cases that involves taking action on an abusive customer. And so that's what congestion management can do for you in an automated way. And it has the effect of extending the life of that network. We have one customer that had a huge budget plan for node splits in a given year. They deployed congestion management, and they actually had zero node splits because of the positive impact of congestion management. I think we might even have a slide coming up next. Yeah, this just kind of shows when congestion management was put in place. On the left really showed congested channels. These are all channels and service groups that had negative impacts on customers' quality of experience. Once the congestion manager was put in place, you see that drop significantly. They had a lot happier customers overall, and just a healthier network. And it really deferred the need to spend a lot of money on node splits and other things. So really another example of kind of what you can do with a network health solution that's constantly looking at this stuff tied into your network in real time. It's pretty powerful.
That's right. And the third area that also will improve network health is speed clipping. What is it? How does it impact the quality of experience for subscribers, and how uncovering it and who's creating speed clipping becomes a revenue opportunity for broadband providers?
Yeah, so this is a term that really refers to how much of a given provision speed a subscriber is actually using. So operators have done a great job. Many of them have automatically bumped up subscriber speed tiers for competitive reasons, or just to provide better service to those subscribers. But there are still a fair number of subscribers that simply need more bandwidth than they have. And what speed clipping is about is identifying exactly who they are. You can kind of see a heat map here, and what that represents is the darker the color, the more closely they are reaching their provision speed, and the more that they're a likely upgrade candidate to a new level of bandwidth. Why is that important? Because that same customer is often calling in and complaining about their service. Field technicians are being rolled out to their home. That's a lot of expense for the operator. That actually is a wasted expense, frankly, because that field technician can't do anything for that subscriber. The best thing that could be done is for this information to be shared within customer care and tech support type resources, so that they have this visibility, so that they can see that the reason the subscriber is having issues is in fact because they need more bandwidth. Or maybe there's an impairment. We'll talk about how the correlation of all this data is really critical as well. But this is something that a lot of operators have taken advantage of, just to be able to really have the information at the fingertips of those resources that are taking the phone calls from customers who have speed issues. This is all part of really our marketing insights platform, which has a whole other host of dashboards and things that operators can take advantage of to look at, usage per billing plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a powerful tool that's all based on the fact that we're collecting all of this data all day long, every day, and analyzing it to determine really, again, is there a mismatch between a subscriber's needs and what they're provisioned for? So all in all, Larry started this with, kind of talking about Vantage, and this is really the only solution in the world that's got all of these network health solutions built into one modular solution suite with a single unified user interface, with a single database behind the scenes that allows for all of this data that we're collecting in the course of offering these solutions, making it available to all kinds of downstream applications that operators might want to pull that data into, and also a single unified polar. And this is important. And again, those of you that are network engineers on the call, just the stress that's put onto your network elements with all kinds of vendors hitting these devices, pulling data, etc. So what we have done is created a single polar, so we can pull the data that we need and use it across our solution suite. And it really makes for a much more efficient data collection process, much less strain on the network elements. It's a really powerful tool. And again, it's the only one that exists that kind of leverages the strengths of all of these solutions. And if you think about it, identifying impairments and providing a set of tools for technicians is one thing, but working around those impairments until it can get fixed is another. That's where PMA comes in. And oftentimes the issue is simply congestion on the network. And so what we're trying to do is take a holistic approach so that these things get set up and they just kind of work. And a lot of times it's all automated, right? So operators can trust that they're getting the absolute best network performance that they can with a suite of tools like this. And it's gonna just make their network so much more resilient. As I mentioned, they're going to maximize the investment that they've made into 3.1, the 3.1 networks, etc. And here you see again some of the ROI type metrics that have been proven in the marketplace. So really powerful. We're excited to bring this to the market. And again, there's nobody else out there that kind of has this mix in an integrated way, like we've just discussed.
Well, thank you, Mark. And after looking at our solutions and what we're offering, we also received some questions. So we have about 5 questions here, and let's jump into it. The first question is, what are the expected impacts of AI on bandwidth usage and network health?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually in Orlando this week at a Cable Labs winter conference, and AI is the topic of the week, and lots of discussion about where AI is headed. Trying to understand again, like this question, what are the impacts going to be on the network? I think that there's 2 answers. One is good and one is not so good. I think the challenge that operators are going to have is that with a lot more AI models out there, from even AI-driven streaming, etc., there's going to be a lot more traffic generated through these AI models, and that's going to put some strain on the network. So that's kind of the negative side of it. On a positive side, leveraging AI to help with network health is really a game changer. And we're building ourselves a lot of AI capabilities into our solution suite. Things like an AI help desk, which is specifically trained with deep domain content that technicians can use to ask a question. And very soon we're going to be launching something that we're excited about, which is the ability, let's say, for a technician to say, tell me everything about this modem, right? And have all of our tools traverse the network and be able to come back to that technician in real time and say, okay, there's no impairments in the home, there is an impairment in the outside plant, or there's congestion on this part of the network. Whatever the issue may be, it'll all be at the technician's fingertips, along with the ability to know what the suggested resolution is for that. So it's going to make technicians and the ability to keep your network healthy much more efficient. So there's lots of AI capabilities that we're trying to leverage and are leveraging within our solution suite that are going to improve network health drastically. So on the one hand, yeah, it's going to drive a lot of traffic, but you got to leverage AI to also improve network health, and that's a big focus of ours at OpenVault.
Thank you. Speaking of our solutions, another question. For the PMA example you showed, how long did it take to deploy the solution, and how long before the operator started seeing results, the kinds of which you shared with today?
So a lot of times with PMA, we will actually do a trial with customers. I want to see that the PMA solution is actually working, that it does no harm. So that trial period would typically last 30 days maximum. Once we get connectivity into the network and work with the operator on profiles and the different things required to get PMA working, it can be deployed very quickly. What we'll typically do is two steps. We'll do what we call open loop, which is really just kind of collecting data and running it through our algorithms and sharing what the impacts would be once we actually apply those profiles. Impacts to both capacity and resiliency, as I talked about. Once that's kind of understood by the operator, then we'll actually on the automated PMA application. So we will actually then be applying these optimized profiles in through our application in an automated way, and then you actually start to see those real results. Kind of that example of the slide that I showed. So we can get a trial executed within 30 days and start showing real value shortly after that, once an operator decides to move forward.
Okay. Here's a question that came in regarding upstream growth. Would the higher upstream growth evidence a shift of residential usage to business applications?
That's actually a really good question. We do have the ability to look at that. We did not do it for this OVBI, but I think that is a very worthwhile thing to look at. We have some of our operators. We have some pretty good ability to distinguish between residential and commercial business accounts. So I think we'll take that under advisement and hopefully include that maybe in our next OVBI, because there's certainly differences in how the service is used between business and residential, no doubt. So how is that impacting the growth metrics? Kind of breaking that down. I think we'll take a look at that. That's a good question. Sorry, I don't have a perfect answer on that one today.
That's the drama of Q&A. We have two more questions. Does PMA only benefit DOCSIS 3.1 customers?
I think I touched on this a little bit. It actually impacts the whole network, right? Because most of our operators that we work with do not have 3.1 modems 100% deployed. There's some, they're on that path. Maybe they've got 70% 3.1, or maybe they've got 20% 3.1, and everybody else is still 3.0 or even 2.0, we see. Modems. So again, if you're not getting 3.1 modems to stay bonded to the 3.1 channels, then they're having a very negative impact on everybody else. And so absolutely there's benefits to the entire subscriber base beyond just 3.1 modems. And we always of course recommend that the sooner you move to this, the more you can avoid negative issues, because a lot of times these 3.1 modems are prioritized to go to the heaviest users. So if they're not staying bonded to the 3.1, it's those heavy users we've been talking about here on this webinar that are continuing to have a very negative effect on the whole network and your network health. So impacts the whole network.
Last question. If you had to pick one thing to address for improving QoE, based on the trends you're seeing, what would that one thing be?
Well, I think as we've talked about, there's a lot of issues that could be causing network health problems. So I think the one initiative I would take is to take a very strategic, holistic approach. I don't think I would pinpoint one of our specific solutions as a place to start. I think you need to think more holistically as an operator and understand that there isn't one single solution that's going to solve for network health in all the potential issues. So take a strategic approach. That's the one thing I would recommend. And make sure you have a suite of solutions that addresses different things that can be causing these issues. So I just think that's the approach operators take. And frankly, it drives our strategy as a business. We think that's important. We know that operators don't want to work with 10 different vendors to solve network health issues, which is why we've really focused our solutions on a more holistic approach in the launch of our Vantage solution suite.
Thank you. For more information about Vantage, please stop by our website. And as a matter of fact, while you're there, download, if you don't have it yet, our latest OVBI, the one that we talked about today. As you can see, overall, OpenVault is not just in the business to publish the OVBI, that we want you to have it. We're a solutions provider, helping broadband providers improve their performance. We're pleased to provide each quarterly report to you, and so don't forget to get yours. And if you have any questions about our products and solution, as I mentioned, go to our website. In addition, this webinar will be available to rewatch in a couple of days. So check it out on our OpenVault YouTube channel, or check our website and click to it and rewatch this. We will be editing out the downtime when my Zoom workplace got renewed. So you won't have to sit through that if you want to share this with somebody else. Again, thank you so much. We look forward to our next OVBI, which will come out in a couple of months. And then we'll be back with another webinar later this year. Thank you. Have yourself a great day.